I'm Seamus Heaney, and I'm sitting in the director's room of the library, strictly speaking, the Belfast Library for the Promoting of Knowledge, better known for centuries as the Linen Hall Library in Belfast. It was founded, this library, in 1788. It was lodged on what is now the site of the City Hall in Belfast, in the old White Linen Hall. And in, I think it was 1888, it transferred to these premises, venerable premises on Donegal Square, which were actually, in the beginning, linen warehouses. So the library has more than 2 centuries of history behind it. It's got a terrific Enlightenment basis. It began at a time of intellectual ferment, political ferment, great liberal notions in Belfast here. Many revolutionaries were associated with it, many people who were fundamental to the uprising in 1798. In fact, the director of this library in the 1790s, Thomas Russell, was arrested in the Linen Hall for his part in the planning of the 1798 rebellion. I first came to the Linen Hall in the early 60s, 1961 to be exact, before Christmas. I was researching a little essay I was doing on Ulster literary magazines. And when I came here, I discovered a local literary tradition. I discovered magazines that were important, very important to the literary community here in the 1940s, when a group of Belfast writers emerged for the first time, I suppose. It's the first time I had a sense of a literary tradition in this part of the world. John Hewitt, Sam Hannibal, Joe Tumulty, associated with a painter called William Connor, they all assembled here. And in this library there are holdings of magazines edited by them and by the poet Roy McFadden in later years. A magazine called Lagan, a magazine called Ran. Belfast is a place I learned a lot about writing. I learned about the community of writers, as I say, in the past, where I made new friends in the 60s after the university, at the university indeed, with Stuart Parker and John Hamilton, and then with later on when I was teaching in Ballymurphy and the training college up in Andersonstown. I met and got very associated with Philip Hobsbawm, who was a teacher in the Queen's University and founded the group, quite a famous group now. Well, when it comes to writers from Belfast, I mean, I've known a lot of them and have got nurture and friendship from a lot of them, but in the beginning, I think that and in the end, I would have to say that Michael McLaverty, who was the headmaster of the school where I began to teach in Belfast in the early 60s. Michael McLaverty was also a writer of classic short stories, a novelist whose first novel and second novel, I think, Call My Brother Back and Lost Fields, are beautiful pastoral books about Ulster. McLaverty is in my affections and in my gratitude. This is a poem called Linen Town, and it says High Street, Belfast, 1786. It's basically a response to a print of that moment, which is probably here in the Linen Hall Library. It's 20 to 4 by the public clock. A cloaked rider clops off into an entry, coming perhaps from the Linen Hall or Corn Market, where the civic print unfrozen, in 12 years' time they hanged young McCracken. This low-necked bell and tricorn fop still flourish, undisturbed by the swinging tongue of his body. Pen and ink, water tint, fence and fetch us in, under bracketed tavern signs, the edge gloom of arcades. It's 20 to 4 on one of the last afternoons of reasonable light. Smell the tidal lagan. Take a last turn in the tang of possibility. It was written just when things were darkening at the end of the 60s, and instinctively we knew we were in for a time of very little time and very little possibility.